So you see how you talked about water holds memory, right?
Mm-hmm.
How many years ago, I don't know what happened in the cosmos, but a Jewish friend that I knew called me and was like, but water has memory, remember, water has memory. And I was like, why are the Jews getting afraid now? You know? And I was thinking, like, did we change in the awakening or whatever happened? Did we change the water, the memory of the water? Because I know in some...
Sorry, sorry. You're cracking up, so I'm actually having difficulty hearing you. So if you could repeat your question again, please.
So water has memory.
Mm-hmm.
You're saying that water had memory, right?
Mm.
And during this awakening, one of the Jewish people that I know called up and was like, you know, water holds memory, water holds memory. And I was like, I was a bit shocked as to why they noticed a massive shift in the memory in water that obviously we don't necessarily know about, okay? Because they know a lot of knowledge, like you say, hidden knowledge that we don't know. So I was going to ask, like, what happened to the state of change in the water for the memory of all of us? And is that like how they know that they've not lost power, but things are now changing? And is it through this memory of water? Because that was very, very significant to these Jews that connected with it, rather than like obviously us human beings, because we don't know about how.
Well, what the master explained is that the Jebusites who you know today as Jews, okay, they were given 1,000 years of information before any of the other brothers and sisters, as it were. You with me? So they have been able to maintain and retain that knowledge through their different rituals that they do, or different books that they have, like the Zohar and other books like that, the Talmud and the Mishnah. These are just certain books that the Jews have in their collection, maybe some others that I'm not even privy to. But essentially, the aspect of memory, okay, also deals with the fact that every cycle, there's a change and a shift in paradigm. So when we were in our highest state, we talk about something called the SMAT circle, okay, which stands for space, matter, and time, right? So in that time cycle, we've always existed, which is approximately as a given reference, not necessarily as an exact figure, but the given reference is that we've existed for 76 trillion years. You with me? Right? Then as time and cycles went on, we started to lose that potency. And in the losing of the potency, you also start to lose memory and knowledge of who you are. So fast forward to 6,000 years ago. By that time, we had so many invaders into our culture, okay, and way of life, that it got polluted. And that pollution means that we no longer had access to our higher selves and no longer have access to the universal forces that work through us. You see? And then that gave the opportunity for other lead rulers to come and manipulate us and use us, etc. As you know, the story goes down to 400 years ago, slavery, etc., etc. So through that cycle takes place every 24,000 years. So within the 76 trillion years, there's cycles that are within cycles that are within cycles. And within our solar system, okay, we have something called a precession. And that precession happens every 25,920 years, approximately. That shift, okay, roughly is for about 24,000 years. So when you split that up into quarters, you have 6,000 sun cycle, 6,000 moon cycle, 6,000 sun cycle, 6,000 moon cycle within the cycle of this solar system. Now, when that 6,000 years came upon us, where we had lost our sight of who we were, it allowed other beings and other forces to infiltrate and control us. And within that controlling of us, we started to worship other beings and other things outside of ourselves. You see? All right. So that's how we start to lose our power, because we started to mix in, and we had gases, okay, which are conscious gases that we were also, how can I say, inhaling into our being. You see, when we talk about 6 ether, 9 ether, 9 ether is a conscious and a conscience gas. 6 ether is a conscious gas, and that gas, when you're actually inhaling it, is converted in the atmosphere, and that affects the way you think and the way you act and the way you behave, coupled with the fact that 6 ether also breeds diseases on the planet. Okay, now all of this coupled together is why we've lost our potency and our higher mind, which is linking in with, you know, the multiverses, etc. And now we're at a stage where the cycle has now done a revolution, okay, which is going back up on the right-hand side of the smart circle, which is going back up to the title, what you know in ancient Egypt as Atum, okay? And then from Atum, it goes into Atun, which is one of the higher forms of deities. And then from Atun to Amun, okay? And that time when the moon started to shift, it started going, that's when we started to lose and wane in power, okay? And that allowed others, forces, cultures, ways of life, thinking, modalities, all of these started to affect us. And we were then practicing those things that were no longer natural to us. You see what I'm saying? Okay, so that's how we started to lose our powers. And then eventually, you know, as you said, the slave trade and all the other things happened. And essentially we lost everything, and now we have to regain it. And hence that's why a being has been sent, okay, is to renew our way of life.
100%. I really love that. And when it comes to like us feeling the pain of my ancestors, but we need to like not pay attention to that, like embrace it and feel it and then transmute it, because it feels really quite like heavy on us.
Yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot of trauma. It's a lot of trauma. It is trauma. We've been traumatized, and a lot of us have had the psychological effects that's happened to us, even to this day and time, where you see so many of our brothers and sisters, even just humanity in itself, just going literally insane. Do you know what I mean? There's a lot of insanity out there, and we were out today, and the amount of people that were just zoned out, like literally, or a lot of people that were just not in their right state of mind. I wouldn't say they were mad, but they were not in their right state of mind. You know what I mean? Walking around just zombified. Yeah. So this is taking place for so many different reasons. But essentially, when you're not with soul, soul is your consciousness. And if you lose soul, you no longer have consciousness. You can still exist because you have spirit. And spirit just deals with self, and it's like it's a survival mechanism, your spirit. It means it has to eat, it has to sleep, it has to do this. It does basically the physical things. That's what your spirit does. Your soul is more the emotional, conscious you, which deals with more about unity and love and coming together, etc., and thinking about the other person and showing empathy and those kind of things. You with me? Yeah, which some beings don't have. Some beings have actually lost that, and more of our people are losing that, okay? Because they are actually, you see these churches and these religious schools, etc. What's happening is when they go to church, unbeknown to them, yeah, is that they are actually channeling their energy into certain frequencies which these beings are actually absorbing. That's what's happening. You got beings that are on certain levels of dimensions that actually feed off of your soul.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then you also do it unintentionally to your own self when we stay up late at night, or we go partying and we're taking some strong drinks or strong drugs, etc., that also weakens and depletes your soul. You see, so there's a lot of things that are happening in within us and externally, and this is why the information of Wu-Sabat is here, is to clean you up. Yeah, it's to help you So go on.
So basically, in theory, like you said, like even like drugs, alcohol, even if we're not consuming it, like we shouldn't really be around the environment of it or people who are doing it, like, because they can channel that like in the environment.
It's
So,
best
like,
it's best not
stay
to
away
be
from those
around.
environments as
Yeah,
well.
because remember, if you're playing, let's just say you go into a place and the music that they're playing is music that is just not conducive to your being. What's taken place is that music can open up portals, okay, because it's dealing with sound, tone, frequency, and vibration. Yeah. And then when these vibrations are happening, is resonating, and that resonant frequency is then is being translated into the spirit realm where certain portals and certain gates are. That's why they do seances, and that's why they do these Kabbalah, and that's why they do these what's it called? Ouija boards. Yeah, it's because they know that that dimension or that portal can be opened by way of certain tones and certain frequencies and certain vibrations. So yes, you're right. When you go into an environment where music is played that's not conducive, it's not just happening to you physically, but it's also opening up certain dimensions where beings can actually ride on the energy of the music. Yeah. And then because now your body is a vibrating instrument, you actually allow beings to walk into you and you become become open to them. So one of the things again that Wu-Sabat does, it protects you from these things. You with me? Not just by way of you removing yourself away from it, but also the fact that as you're studying Wu-Sabat, as you're speaking the language, as you're communicating and unifying together on that mental wavelength and frequency, you're also generating a light, a light that's emitting from you. And that light that's emitting from you envelopes you with a protective shield. Do you understand?
Sorry, yes, yes.
Yeah. So that's what's happening.
I have one.
Go
Sorry.
ahead. Yep, go ahead.
I had one more question. I did put it in the chat, but I realised that it didn't get picked up, right? But when you look at the Galactic Federation or you look at the galactic knowledge, they say there's about 17 races that have always been benevolent and they live on the different star systems. But when they've incarnated into the Earth plane, they have been destructive. So apparently, like there's some reptilians that broke contract. They were benevolent, but then they broke contracts and then became negative. But there's some reptilians that are okay and have tried to support in the awakening of other beings from upper star systems. And there was one lady, Rothschild, who said, I was we're benevolent in our star system, but in this earth plane, we are the White House control, federal system, etc. And then I know last week you mentioned that the reptilians, the draconians, and the Palladians broke contract. Is there anything in Dr. M's book or research that talks about the different races of benevolent ones? Because I've only
the master teacher, Pod Nababianon doesn't really go into who broke contract and who's who. He has explained that you have malevolent ones known as the beings from Aldebaran, beings for Pleiades, etc. But you have benevolent and malevolent in all species and all intergalactical federations. You with me? So it's about the alignment that they make. So if they align, for instance, if we go to the Anunnaki, for instance, Enki and Enlil being the two brothers, they broke up into two. But the alignment was more, Enki was more aligned to the Natharu. Do you see what I'm saying? And his two sons, Nabu and Murdoch, were more aligned to the Natharu. Okay, so that's just an example of allegiancy. Because you can have an allegiancy to certain higher forces. So because you recognize what they're about and you want to keep the balance of the universe. And then you have those who can be switched, you with me, to join another allegiance because one, it could be the safety of their planet, you with me, or it could be the safety of their race. So they got no choice but to align, like beings who were made in the Adamites, for instance. They had no choice because once they were made, they were given a covenant, and that covenant is if you don't do what we tell you to do, we will eat your children. We will eat you up. We'll consume you. So that's another aspect of it. You with me? So sometimes you're done by coerciveness, or you do it by choice, where you align yourself with the higher forces because you know that those higher forces brings harmony to the universe. Okay.
Love that. Thank you. Thanks so much.
You're most welcome.